You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Cricket Podcast, or welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we are doing our big IPL re-preview. In this segment of the show, we will be talking Punjab Kings. And Max, which team will you be talking about?
The Rajasthan Royals.
Yes, it's the sixth and fifth worst teams from the first half of the IPL. Maybe the two outsiders, the dark horses to break into the playoff spots and snatch an unexpected tournament victory, or maybe not. I'm Jack. I'm with Max. How you doing, Max?
Hello. Very good. Very good.
And Dan Weston is here as well. Dan?
I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah. Pretty good. That's going to be really weird for the people on the podcast that we've just introduced ourselves again.
Yeah, pleased to say that in the last 15 minutes, I've not got bad. We'll see how it goes.
We're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/thecricketpod for exclusive access to stuff. And we're on the road to 10K subs. We're nearly at 8K. We want to get to 10K. Go over to YouTube, make an account, make 10 accounts, and subscribe to us over and over again. Punjab Kings, they're the next team on our IPL preview. So far in the IPL, they've won 3 out of their 5 games. Now, I think looking back towards the original preview, the pre-preview, if you like, of the IPL, that feels like a bit of an underperformance. For Punjab. I don't know, did either of you expect them to do better than 3 out of 5? I think we sort of did, Dan.
Yeah, we did.
3 out of 5? 3 out of 8.
3 out of 8.
Yeah. I thought I had them as my dark horses, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're very dark now. But why is that? We didn't really expect this to happen, but their overseas bowling for the first half of the tournament just didn't quite come off, I think it's fair to say. If we take a look at some of those stats in a little bit more detail, Meredith, Jordan and Richardson were all a lot more costly than I think Punjab would have hoped them to be, and certainly we expected them to be. So they have conceded a lot of runs and they've lost a lot of games. And batting-wise, they're not really helped, given that they are leaking quite a few runs, particularly at the death, with the way they play. Once again, they've been pretty ponderous. Nobody in the entire lineup has been particularly dangerous in terms of hitting boundaries. And that overly cautious approach has definitely held them back. If you look at their power play record and use that as a barometer of how they like to set the tempo of games, well, they're the worst team. They average less than 42 in the first 6 overs of an innings, which is pretty poor. There's one man that we often blame for that. His name is KL Rahul. I'm sure we'll get the chance to talk about him in a little bit more detail, but I shall let one of you speak now. Max, is there anything specific that you think Punjab have done wrong in the first half of the tournament, or is it, just one of those variance things? Maybe it's all fallen apart at the wrong times for them.
I think just a little bit of underperforming, really. I don't necessarily think they've done anything different from what we'd expect, I suppose. I mean, we know that generally the way they like to open up the game is maybe not to make the most out of the power play, as you said, with those stats, and then to go a bit deep. And part of that, arguably, has been, I'd say, Chris Gale coming in at 3 rather than opening, which he has done in the past. So yeah, perhaps it's an approach thing, but I think they've just not quite done it. Chris Jordan ended up coming back into the side, didn't he, with the ball, because at first it wasn't really working. Moises Enriquez was a questionable pick in the
I forgot
draft.
About that.
So I think some of it is a bit of that kind of thing, but it's not like surprising, is it? It's not sort of. I was just sort of thinking, like, I guess maybe in the approach there are things they're doing wrong, but it's not things that they haven't done wrong before. It's sort of the same kind of trend. And again, Puran as well. He's another guy where you rely on to hit the big runs, and he's not really fired as well. So combination of things, but for me, a little bit of underperformance, and something that could change around, but they do have to pick the right team.
Dan, is what Max said right? Is it
Yeah.
just that they're picking the wrong team?
Apart from the fact that he called Moses Henriquez recruitment questionable, and I
Sorry, I don't want to be too mean.
he was being diplomatic. Apart from that, I agree. And if you look at the way that they've structured up their appearances so far, they've got 7 players, only 7 who have played 7 or 8 games in this tournament, but they have 10 who have played between 1 and 4 matches. So that really sort of suggests that they don't really know their best team. And they're kind of just, I mean, I've got no problem with making changes if it's like horses for courses, opposition specific, venue specific, or whatever. But making changes just because you lose and you don't know your best team is much more of an issue. And obviously, Paran's lack of runs was a massive problem for them. I think the 2 players who I thought would do well for them, Paran, Jai Richardson, I think both of them massively underperformed. But I had less expectations for the likes of Meredith, Jordan, and Henriquez. Then also and Milan as well. And then when you've got Deepak Hooda as your highest striker in the whole competition, you know you've probably got problems.
16, 17, 18, 19. They've used 19 players so far. I just wanted to count that up. So they've basically used almost everyone in their squad.
Apart from one.
So there's one poor bloke who hasn't got a go.
So we're gonna. Okay, so if we do regular shows during the IPL, right? I think we should have a buzzer or a siren every time I mention the name of Ishan
Perel.
Yeah, straight away.
Is that the only player to not play? Ishan Perel.
I don't know if it's the only one, but it's the one who should.
The only one who should play, I think. That has got to go.
I mean, 19's a lot. I mean, if you think about how international teams work, and Dan, the point you make there about structuring differently for different conditions or for different opposition, normally that means switch like 1, maybe 2 players. Maybe you've got 14 really good players.
Play an extra spinner, or
your 15th or 16th best players, though, you might as well just stick with the actual better player, because even though the conditions might not be perfect for them, they're probably so talented, or the difference in talent between them and your 16th, 17th, 18th best player is probably so substantial that it doesn't make sense to make the switch for the perceived gain. So maybe they fall into the trap of that. I mean, they do always feel like a team in disarray. Whenever we talk about KL Rahul, well, let's get on to the ball eater. People say he bats like he does because of the disarray around him and because he can't rely on the rest of the batting lineup. Now, I don't really buy that, to be honest. I think the batting lineup is fine. It might not be performing, but I don't think you should bat differently because you have a suspicion that Nicholas Pooran might get a duck. You have to bat like you expect Nicholas Pooran, the player you've drafted for X amount of money, is going to come in later in the order, and you can't bat like that. But I do have a little bit of sympathy. I think for him in terms of having to captain this outfit, because presumably it's not all his decision making. He's not the one picking these 19 different players and then trying to have to work with them. It's got to be a bit of a nightmare, to be quite honest. Turning up, not really knowing who's going to bowl what. And I mean, it's 19 players. There's a lot of people to keep track of, and it's difficult to establish any kind of trust really in any player to do a specific role if they've only done it once for you before, or perhaps never done it for you before. What else do we want to talk about for him?
That Perel plays for them, and that's why.
He's
keeping track of 19, but not 20.
We can read out KL Rahul's stats. His strike rate just isn't good enough, basically, for the number of balls that he faces. And you look at everybody performing that role in the IPL, and they outperform KL Rahul. So there's not really a comeback to that, unless you want to compare him to Manish Pandey, and nobody should be doing that. Top performers. Let's talk about top performers and stick to the script. Max, have you been impressed by anyone off the top of your head in this Punjab team?
Well, have I?
No.
Not really.
I've got somebody. I'm a little bit similar. The player that I'd like to see more of, it's not really someone I've been impressed by, and I said this before the tournament, Ravi Bishnoi. When Ravi Bishnoi has played, he's performed as well as anybody, really. And I know, to some extent with spinners, you can get them to outperform their stats with good matchups and good captaincy. But he's bowled 96 balls so far, which is way too few. Mohamed Shami, the bowler who's bowled the most balls for Punjab, has bowled 172. So he's bowled like half the number of balls of Mohamed Shami. His runs per ball 1.03. Now it doesn't matter if the conditions are favourable or not. That's like a very strong effort. You could be bowling in really, really friendly conditions, and if that's what you're returning over half a tournament, that's good going. And on top of that, he's taken a few wickets. He's averaging 24. So he's basically taking a wicket a game and going at a run a ball. Why has he not been playing more, Dan? Is it just idiocy?
We haven't got a clue what they're doing, probably.
Well, that answers that.
The other thing is that they don't really have any other decent leg spinners. I mean, Bishnoi is so much of an upgrade over Murugan Ashwin. It's not.
Well, they have given Murugan Ashwin a decent go. He's bowled 66 balls, and they kind of used them interchangeably. I think they've played many games together. His runs per ball 1.47, and he has taken a single wicket. So that's not good in comparison. Max, predictions for the second half here. Let's assume that they pick Bishnoi. Well, actually, no, hold on. They have made some squad changes. Let's do those quickly. Nathan Ellis is in for Riley Meredith. Adil Rashid is in for Jai Richardson. Aidan Markram is in for Dawid Malan. I didn't have Aidan Markram down as a T20 player. Adil Rashid's okay. And I think we talked about Nathan Ellis on the replacements pod, Dan. Max, we'll let Dan talk about them again in a moment. Which of those three are you excited to see? Adil Rashid, presumably?
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned that perhaps they were lacking a little in the spin department. So if we see Bishnoi and Adil Rashid, I know it might be double leg spin, but that could be, if we get spinning pitches in the UAE, as we like to remind ourselves continually, that could be something useful for them. But obviously, you still have to fit Adil Rashid into that side as an overseas player, and there's not necessarily enough space if you want to pick the likes of Chris Gale and Puran still, but I mean he'll get in obviously, so that's probably means that they might not pick Chris Jordan as well, so could be a double win for them.
Dan, Nathan Ellis, and we've talked about Aidan Markram coming into the side. He doesn't strike me as somebody who should be in the IPL, but he is. Why is he?
Has he played well recently?
Is that it?
I think pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I tweeted about this the other day, right? And I was like, in a world where you could pick guys like Alex Hales, Ramanella Gabars, Josh Inglis, you end up with Aidan Markram.
What's Alex Hales done to everyone?
No idea.
Has Owen Morgan just been spreading news about him?
Don't know. But anyway, I was tweeting about this the other day, and these just guys like pluck names out off the top of my head who would be far better, and there's plenty of others as well. And people were like, "Oh well, he's currently playing well in the subcontinent. What, in one match against Sri Lanka at the point that I tweeted, one match against a team who will come bottom of the blast. Okay, well, that's proof of a good recruitment. I don't know. Yeah. Well, anyway, so no, I don't. He has improved. He has improved. I think his off spin's going to get massively exposed at a much higher level because he has been bowling a little bit as well. And I don't see it. There's some people were like, oh, well, it's convenient because of COVID and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, the UAE right now is, I can go to UAE as a tourist and not have to quarantine from England, right? So there's absolutely no drama about getting English players over there at all. Alex Hales doesn't even have a Red Bull contract anyway, so he could have just gone on the next plane over there and done his 6 days, and life would be good. But no, and also all these people, I've got about 10 comments saying, "Oh, well, what about COVID? It's convenient because of COVID." I'm thinking, are you telling me right now that no IPL team had ever done bad recruitment before COVID? It's just such a convenient excuse to gloss over some bad recruitment.
Yeah. We present Exhibit A, Tim Seifert. Right, predictions. Second half of the tournament, they've got 6 matches left. Dan, your turn to go first. How many games out of 6 are Punjab going to win?
Oh, I want them to do well. They've got players with upside. They've got 6 games left. I'm going to be kind. I'll give them 3.
3. You think half and half? Max, go on. What do you reckon?
He's taken my 3, so I'll go. What am I going to go? I'm going to go downside and say 2.
I was going to say 4, so it's nice that we've all got to pick what we want there. I think they've got a chance of winning 4 matches. They could be in the frame. I don't think they're awful. I think they bat in a weird way. But even KL Rahul, I know we knock him loads, but he has in the past had seasons where he's not been KL Rahul, who is very hard to get out, but doesn't actually go anywhere particularly quickly.
Yeah, well, this season
he's been aggressive.
KL Rahul. He scored. Was it 96 or 94 or 50 odd balls?
I think it was 91.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's in the 90s, isn't it? It's pretty good. Max, well, who are we going to next?
So we're off to Rajasthan next, and Rajasthan Royals they're quite an interesting case at the moment now. Actually, I think we probably wrote them off at the start of the tournament because of the loss of Jofra Archer, which pretty much negated their capture of Chris Morris. With both of them in the side, I think we were thinking they looked pretty tasty and possibly in with a shout at the playoffs. And I think without Archer, we thought that they would probably be slipping back down into the bottom 4. And we also had quite a few concerns around their local talent as well, which, as just recently mentioned, is quite important for winning a limited overs franchise tournament. But they've sort of hung in there. So they are 5th in the table, on the same number of points as Punjab, having played 1 game less and with a better net run rate. So they're 3 wins from 7, and that's sort of been down to some outrageous individual displays. So we've seen Chris Morris marmalising Tom Curran. We've seen Chris Morris choking KKR at the death, and we've seen Butler battering Bairstow's Sunrisers in each of those wins, which has kept them in contention at 5th. But I think, if I remember rightly, that's kind of what we said would need to happen if they were to stand a chance, wasn't it? That their big guns would have to fire.
Yes, well, they did, which is good, isn't it? That's what you want. They've also had there's a couple of other guys who I didn't expect to do well. Zakaria has had probably a better tournament than his actual ability, and Unadkat.
Yeah,
Unadkat has been actually quite good.
Absolutely, yeah. We should definitely give some credit to that bowling lineup. And I think Mr. Fizzer has done pretty well as well, given that he's had the unenviable task of trying to fit into Jofra Archer's shoes, albeit in a slightly different way. I think they've done much better than we expected and provided a reasonable support to that side. But despite that, the fact that those guys had done better than we expected, they have still been the most expensive team in the competition. Although I think we can probably put that down to them playing in Delhi and Mumbai, where the scores have sort of generally been pretty high, especially compared to some of those games in the Chepauk, which have been impossible to score from about 13 overs onwards.
Worst cricket stadium in the world.
Yeah.
Sharjah.
Yeah.
Sharjah's fun though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think Sharjah's good. Sharjah's good.
And that season economy is going to be ruined when he plays at Sharjah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring it on. I say. Carry on, Max. Carry on.
Yeah. In terms of top performers, I think we've mentioned really, haven't we? On sort of individual occasions, there's guys who've been huge. So Chris Morris has taken 14 wickets, which is pretty impressive. Josh Butler hit a century against Sunrisers. He's scored 254 runs, and also we can't forget Sanju Samson's a very, very impressive 100 in that losing cause on their first game against Punjab, which was just not quite enough to overturn a mammoth total, although he hasn't done
that was
a huge amount since then.
Mental cricket match.
We were on the way back from Mansfield, weren't we, getting all our Woodstock stuff?
Our sponsor, Woodstock Cricket, buy a bat. TCP 25.
Yeah, I think that one. Yeah. I mean, they've had some good performers across the side, but they've needed them just because of how their squad shapes up. So if we move on to the replacements, a few weeks ago, actually, I fancied, as a result of their replacements to possibly turn around and become actual contenders for the playoffs. I mean, we knew Stokes was out, and Archer they hadn't replaced up to now. So Shani Thomas is in for Stokes. Inexperienced in the IPL, but in the 4 games he played, he's done pretty well. And we've got Glenn Phillips coming in for Jofra Archer, which could be pretty exciting. We'll see how he goes. Butler pulled out, which was a bit of a blow, but given Glenn Phillips was brought in before that, I suspect they knew that was happening, and is part of the reason Glenn Phillips came in. And then Butler's actual replacement is Evan Lewis, who, from what I can tell, Dan, scores runs and does them quickly. He seems to have has hit more 6s than 4s in T20 internationals, which I gather anything above was it 80% you said is good, or
yeah, if you do like divide amount of 4s by the number of 6s, anything under 2 is pretty good. Anything under 1 is elite.
Yeah.
So like you score more than 6s than you do 4s.
Yeah.
It's obviously something that Liam Livingston did in the 100, and he's going into the
yes
squad as well.
Exactly. And so yeah, the final replacement in that lot is Andrew Ty's out, and he's been replaced by one of the best T20 spinners going at the moment in Tabraiz Shamsi. So potential there for some more exciting celebrations of dialing numbers on a shoe, which I don't understand. Do you know what that is?
I genuinely haven't seen this one.
No, he did it in the 100. Basically, just took his shoe off and like pretend to press some buttons, and I don't know. It was an interesting one. A good foil to Imran Tahir. If you get both of them in the same team, that could be interesting. But yeah, you mentioned a guy there, Dan, which I haven't mentioned yet, and that is Liam Livingston, who presumably previously up to now was just there for the bants, but he's recently showed everyone that he's nonsense at cricket, in particular against India and the L100 Aero, with some of the most exciting displays in recent memory. Just absolutely smoking the ball everywhere from the get-go. Yeah. So I mean, when you think about the guys there that I've mentioned, like there's a phenomenal looking T20 team in there, but unfortunately you can only play 4 of them. So we're back to the same problem that we had in the first place. You've got Morris, Shamsi, Mustafiza, Livingston, Phillips, Shani Thomas, and then the other guys as well that David Miller was playing before. Doesn't even get into that group for contention now, you'd think, with the replacements they've got. So we're sort of where we were, of needing their big guys to really step up and put in some ridiculous performances, because you can't really rely on that local contingent to back them up. I mean, relying on Shivam Dubey to come in and finish your innings is probably not the wisest strategy for success.
What are you saying about the Dube?
the nearly millionaire. So yeah, I mean, we're in a situation.
He's richer than all of us combined.
Yeah, quite right too. But yeah, so we're in a situation really with the Royals where they've strengthened possibly their overseas contingent from what they started with, but they still are relying on individual displays to get them over the line. It's just that they have a couple more options now of individual displays, I think, than they did before. So
I just mentioned my Liam Livingston tweet.
Yeah. Oh yes, go for it.
So, I sent a tweet today. I was looking at. I'm doing a mock 100 draft tomorrow. So I was looking at the 100, looking at some stats, and one of the things I was doing was looking at where different players finished, which percentile different players finished in some batting metrics. So batting average, strike rate, 6-4 ratio, and boundary percentage. Now Liam Livingston finishes in the top. He's either the best or in the top 2% for all of those 4. Plus, he scored the most runs in the 100. So Max, when you said he was nonsense, he had like one of the most insane tournaments you could possibly have relative to the competition. Like there wasn't even like some other guy who came along and scored at 190 but his average was 15 or something like that. No, he just beat everyone at everything that is important for that whole tournament. Good recruitment, Dan, by the way.
And I'll tell you what is nonsense as well. Before England got put on the red list during the IPL, I'll tell you what is nonsense. That Rajasthan picked David Miller over him for the first 2 games.
Oh my God. Well, that's absolutely so. But what was great about this tweet, I sent this tweet, the first person to like it, I hadn't tagged him in it, the first person on the whole internet to like it was Liam Livingston. It took like 4 seconds. I hit send. 1, 2, 3, 4. Liam Livingston has liked your tweet. So I don't know, has he, Dan, maybe you could give us some insight. Does he have Liam Livingston as like a notification on his phone? So anytime anyone on the internet mentions his name, he's like, what's going on?
It's like Voldemort, isn't it? If you say Lord Voldemort, suddenly he knows where you are. That was it, wasn't it?
Presumably you tweeted at the exact time you were searching for his name on Twitter.
Which would also be pretty amazing. Anyway, yes, that's Liam Livingston. He's good. They're all right, Rajasthan, aren't they? Aren't they, Dan?
I've got my reservations. I certainly don't think that they are the Moneyball team, which some people might have you believe. I think.
They're not that. They're in Ben Jones's book Cricket 2.0. They literally talk about how Rajasthan Royals are the Moneyball team in the IPL.
They're not.
Because they got Josh Butler for a little bit less money than they thought they would be able to get him for. They've also got like Dubé for way more money. If you balanced out the amount of money they spent on Dube and Josh Butler, you'd have bad value overall there.
Yeah, although I'd imagine Liam Livingston's turned out to be pretty cheap.
Well, they didn't pick him, did they? You know, if they were that Moneyball,
I think they might. I think they might do now.
Yeah.
How much did they spend on Ben Stokes?
Yeah,
too much.
Too much.
And presumably, if they were a Moneyball organisation, such tendencies would have also gone across to Barbados Royals, their team in the CPL, but that was a miserable failure.
Yeah,
so, I don't see.
They don't feel like Moneyball to me. They feel like maybe if Aston Villa suddenly bought Ronaldo and Mbappe.
That's a little bit like it is. Do you remember when Man City bought Robinho?
Yeah.
When they were really rubbish and they were just trying to become modern Man City, and the only player they could get was a very suspect Brazilian. If we ignore recent news as much as possible.
Didn't in the same team as like Jamie Pollock and like
up
front and
like
stuff like that.
Richard Dunn at the back.
Danny Mills.
Yeah. That's a little bit like this is that. Yeah, there's definitely some early Man City vibes going on there. Max, anyway, should we move on to what else the next thing is?
Yeah, well, I think just how many games will they be winning of their final 7? Do you think?
I would say 3 again.
Yeah, I'm going 4.
You're gonna go 4?
Yeah,
Dan?
Probably would have gone 3, but.
You're going to put your neck out and say 5?
No, certainly not. It would be more of a 2 than a 5.
Liam Livingston's going to score 1,000 runs.
Well, that's what I worry about a little bit in terms of we're going with 2. But screw it, we'll go 2. And I also want to give out a little bit of a warning to our listeners here. Some people sometimes say don't listen to anything on Wikipedia. But I've got the Rajasthan Royals squad list up on Wikipedia right now. And they've got O'Shane Thomas down as a 35-year-old pace all-rounder. So I think he's about 23 and doesn't bat.
I wonder where they've even got that information from. Yeah. Well, there we are. That's the end of part 2 of our 4-part IPL re-preview. We will take a quick break. In fact, if this is a podcast, we might just split it in 2. We'll either be back or we'll be on the next episode. We'll definitely be on the next episode if you're on YouTube. Road to 10K subscribers. Hit subscribe now if you like IPL.
I think
not if you like us, just if you like the IPL.
The length of the podcast that you're listening to might be a giveaway as to whether we've stopped now or carried on.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back either way.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.